Microsoft Excel 2003 Functions 101. We've seen how formulas work. Now how do we take formulas to the next level? That's what functions are all about. Here we get our introduction to functions. Functions 101. We're going to take a look at what a function is. We're going to create a function by just typing something in. And then we're going to learn how we can insert an already created function into our spreadsheets. Before we get too far, there are a couple basic things that we need to understand about functions. Number one, the difference between a function and a formula. Well, number one, functions are predefined. So all I've done is I've taken some formulas and I've predefined them in Microsoft Excel. Now that can be anything from, instead of going A1 plus A2 plus A3 plus A4, you get the joke, right? What I'm doing is I'm saying, look, I know that instead of adding and putting in all the little operators there, I'm merely saying sum. It is a built-in formula, predefined formula, which is now known as a function. You can use averaging. You can use all kinds of statistical things that are put into place. The second thing to look at is that all functions, just like formulas, they start with an equal sign. Anytime you put an equal sign, the Excel knows that you're going to put a formula or a function, which is a predefined formula, into that particular cell. Then the next thing you need to have, so if I have my equal, the next thing that comes in will be the name of the function. And it's not put in quotation marks, I'm just showing you it's the name of the function. So for example, you would say equal and then sum, or equal and average, or equal or PMT, which is for payment. These are all examples of functions that are placed into cells, and then they're followed by something called an argument. So the argument is not like, I know some of you like Monty Python, and there's a great sketch that says, is this the right room for an argument? We don't sit there and argue and yell at the screen. No, we're talking about the information that the functions need in order to perform the operation or task. Now, arguments can be anything like cells or range of cells. It could be a name. It could be a particular number. It could be even an additional function to perform. But these are all arguments that are placed within these functions in order for us to perform the task at hand. So let's show you what that looks like. So now that we've given you the definitions of functions and what references are and how we all use these built-in formulas that allow us to do all kinds of things, hundreds of different types of functions that we can use. Well, let's get to it. Let's open up a blank Excel spreadsheet. Now I'm going to show you how to insert a function in the blank one, and then I'll give you a demonstration on one of our example files and show you how it would work and give you the results that you're looking for. The first thing that we can see is that at any point in time, I can click on a cell and then say, I want to create a function. Now I can do this by clicking in the formula bar and typing it out by hand, manually. The first thing that we need in any formula or function is the equal. That means, hey, we're going to do something that is a formula or a function. With the function, I will then need to tell it what the function name is. For example, let's use sum. That's a very common one that we've used and seen before. And so we say sum. The next thing I'm going to do is put a parens, an open parens, saying, okay, here begins what I'm doing with this function. And look at this. The neat thing is that Excel's always so great. It'll come in here and give you some information like, okay, what's going on here with this? What am I doing here? What's the next thing I need to do? Now I can type in manually, again, say, okay, I want A1 through A5. Just for fun, we're going to go ahead and take A1 and A5, and we are going to sum the numbers that appear here. Notice I then close the parens to say that's it for that argument, and then I click enter. Now right now, there's nothing there. But watch what happens if I start typing in numbers. If I type in 5, and then arrow down, and then another 5, and arrow down, and then a 63, and then a 12, and then watch. This is my last number, so if I put in a 56 here, it will add it up. But if I put another number in, it won't do anything to this particular function. Now, however, it says, look, I've noticed that you have some data here, and it says the formula refers to a range that has additional numbers adjacent to it. It's warning you that maybe, just maybe, you forgot to include that cell A6. However, the way the formula is placed right now, it is not going to add that. So this is a nice little warning, and it's part of that error checking that we talked about earlier in the video series. So here we can see, quite simple, and I can click down here and I'll just say ignore the error right now. That's okay. We don't want to include A6. In fact, I'll go here and delete that information. So again, that is how I can manually come in and plug in a function. Of course, not everybody knows every single function, and so they're not going to be able to just come up here to the formula bar and start typing away and know instantly the functions. Now, the ones you use more often or not, you could probably do, but sometimes it's so much easier just to click on the Insert Function button, or I can come up here to the Insert menu and do an Insert Function as well. Let me select a different cell, and we'll go ahead and go with E5 here, and I'm going to click on the Insert Function. Watch what happens. When I do that, it's going to say, what function do you want to insert with my Insert Function dialog box? I can do a couple of things. I can search for a function by typing in a description of what I want to do, and then just click Go over here. I can select a category, most recently used. I can pick every single one of these particular functions. Watch this. I can click All, and it's going to say, here you go, from ABS all the way down to the very bottom to Z-test. Every single function that's available to me in Excel right here. Now, what if you don't know exactly what some of these functions are? For example, let's select VARPA. You know, what a great name, VARPA. Well, this is variance that's based on the entire population. So this is obviously a statistical function that's part of Excel. But what if, you know, all this information, it kind of gives me a clue, but I'm not really sure exactly what it is. I can click the help on this function, and when I do that, it's going to bring up the Microsoft Excel help, and it will tell you, okay, here is the function, and it's going to say it calculates variance based on the entire population. Well, I know that, but what does it mean? Well, it gives you remarks. It shows you the equation. It even tells you the syntax on how you put this together and gives you the rules for it. But I love this about the help. Look at this. It gives you an example of where you would use this. I love this because I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm just like, I don't get it. It says, suppose all 10 tools stamped from the same machine are collected and measured for braking strength. Well, you know, what would you like to do? Well, look down here, and it's going to give you the information, and then you can see how it works. I love that about Excel's help here. It tells me, and this is true on any single one of the functions that you have. So never worry about if you don't know something. But what if you don't know which one of these functions you want to use? That's what the search for the function is all about. I can come up here, type a brief description. So let's say I'm looking for loan payment. I want to calculate a loan payment. I click Go, and it says, here is your recommended functions that you want to use. There's the PMT, which is the payment one. Calculates the payment for a loan. Hey, look, first one out of the box. That's the one I'm looking for. And it also gives you some other options. I can do, if I just want to find out what the interest payment's going to be, I can use the IPMT. Or if I want to know what my principal is going to be on those, I can get that with the PPMT. And again, whatever function you want to use, you can select here, and then you can build that function according to the rules that are in place. So it helps you with this insert function. I'm going to go ahead and go with the most recently used. I'll stick with some for right now just to show you how this works. Click OK. And what it's going to do is it's going to say, all right, what numbers or arguments do you want to insert into this function? Now remember, arguments, we talked about earlier, they're not, you get into a room and you start yelling at each other. Arguments are the information that the functions are going to use to perform the operation. And it can be anywhere from 0 to 14. Sometimes, it just depends on the particular function you're going to do. You can keep adding these arguments. The first one is what number. Right now, it automatically assumes based upon where I clicked. See, I clicked on E5. And so it's saying, oh, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and sum up A5 through D5 because that's where I'm at. It's kind of assuming what's going on. Well, no, not necessarily. So what I can do is click here, which is going to collapse the dialog box and allow me to select what it is I'm looking for. In this case, I want to do the same thing. I want to sum up A1 through A5. So I release that, and I go ahead and click on the collapse button again. It brings it in. It says, all right, A1 through A5. And look what it does. It automatically shows you what the answer is right now. The formula result is 141. But maybe I also want to add a different cell. Let's say I want to say B6. Well, right now there's nothing in. It tells me what the current value is. There's nothing there. And then I want to add C6. See up here, it's steadily, consistently building the arguments into my function, and it's doing it through this function dialog box. So once I've done this, and I can keep adding number after number and either select it by pointing and clicking or typing into this area, I click OK, and it gives me my result. Now remember, we said we want to do something for B6. So if I type in 10, it's going to add that is because my formula has B6 and it also has C6. So it is going to increase. Whereas this formula that I typed in is just A1 through A5, this formula is A1 through A5 and B6 and C6. Add up all these numbers together, the range as well as the individual cells. And so this is how we use the insert function instead of actually typing it out into the Excel spreadsheet. Now, as promised, I am going to show you how this works on some actual data that we have. So I'm going to go ahead and open up another workbook. I got my sales figures right here, so I click on that one. And it opens up my sales figures, and we're familiar with this particular spreadsheet workbook that we put together. And I want to create a formula over here that goes and averages out the sales for the total quarter. So what I'm going to want to do is average out all of these sales. So the first thing I'm going to do is we'll pick a cell here, and I'm going to type sales average, okay? And now I'm going to go ahead and scroll over here for this, and that way we'll put it in the next cell, which is located right here. Let's go ahead and expand this just a little bit so we can see sales average. Now, the thing I want to do is, let's say I just don't know how to do it. Don't worry, I got my insert function capabilities. I insert function, and I want to do an average. And I hit go. Well, it's going to say, all right, what type of averaging do you want to do? Do you want to return the average? Do you want to have an average where it evaluates the arguments in the text? Do you want the average for the deviations of data? I mean, I've got a lot, but I just want a simple average. So I say, okay. It's then going to say, all right, well, what do you want to average out? Well, I click on this. And remember, my sales are right here. So what I'm going to do is scroll up a little bit, make sure I select all of these, collapse it, and then I'm going to say OK, and it's even giving me my formula result right now. I click OK, and now I have a formula, a function that's based on the average of D2 through D21, which is my sales that I have right here. And all I did was I came in, I said, I want to create a function. I'm going to put it right here. I selected the arguments. I said, do it, and boom, there it is. That's how simple it is to use this insert function capability. So here we got our first look at functions and how they work. We started off with a few definitions, just little necessary items to get us up and running on functions, talk about what an argument is, how we have to start off with the equal sign and then put the name of the function. We then went in and created a function. We used sum as an example and typed it in, and then we saw how we could use the insert function capability to take an already existing function and then put in the arguments that we need in order to create it, and then boom, we're set up and we're ready to go. A very simple, very straightforward process. Again, a little later on in our video series, we'll see some of the more advanced functions and how they work together with each other. But here's a good start to functions. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.